Welcome back, super friends and super family. I'm Nick. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, kind of doing a deep dive analysis, review, some Easter eggs from the new movie from Angel Studios, the sci-fi dystopian thriller, The Shift. If you want to see my reaction to that film, I cut out any spoilers, but if you want to see kind of my initial impressions, get a little taste of the movie, basically like a trailer from my point of view, you can check out my original reaction video to The Shift. It's on my channel right now. But I reacted to that movie. I had a lot of fun with this new movie, and Angel Studios actually reached out to me and asked if I'd like to do kind of an in-depth discussion, analyze some of the Easter eggs, some of the themes, and I said yes. And it was a really easy choice because probably my favorite aspect of this movie is how it can kind of be a conversation starter, in the sense that yes, there's kind of the surface level plot and things that happen, but there's a lot open to interpretation. And no, I don't think it's like a full-on ambiguous ending. I think there is a conclusion to the story. You do get solid answers, but like a lot of sci-fi films, think things like Inception, The Matrix, there are different ways to interpret the events and the meaning of what's going on screen. This video I'm going to actually break into two parts. The first half of it, I'm going to kind of discuss some of the themes, some of the elements more in depth that I really like from the movie, but I will be avoiding spoilers. And then in the second half of this video, I will be diving into some spoiler material, but I will warn you ahead of time. So if you haven't seen The Shift, you don't want anything spoiled, I will warn you before we get into spoiler territory. And if you have seen The Shift, I think it'll be fun because we'll kind of get into some discussion points that I definitely wanted to jump into right after I watched the movie, but I couldn't really talk about because I was trying to avoid spoilers in my initial reaction.
Where's my wife? I shifted her. What do you want with me?
So there's two kind of main themes I really want to talk about that are presented in a very interesting way in this movie. But before I even do that, I want to mention something that I didn't say in my initial reaction review, and that is praising Neal McDonough's performance as the benefactor. I mean, he was outstanding in this movie. I love Sean Astin and every scene that Sean Astin was in, but I feel like Neal McDonough might have had even a little bit of an edge over him as far as being a scene stealer in this movie. I mean, you know those moments in a movie theater where you're sitting, you're watching with everybody, and there's certain moments of tension or excitement where everyone kind of just leans forward and really focuses up. It sharpens. You can just feel it in the room. I feel like that is absolutely what it's going to be like every time Neal McDonough is on screen if you're watching this in a theater. I want to keep it vague about his character. I feel like there's kind of an obvious interpretation that you can even pick up just from watching some of the trailers, but I also feel like there's different angles to it, possibly, or different ways you could view some of the messages and influences he is saying. Gonna keep it vague in this section. Like I said, I'll dive into more spoilers later in this video. But he absolutely knocked it out of the park, and of course it was great to see Sean Astin, Samwise the Brave, just very, very great character, interesting character. They did something different with his character than I expected as well. Also, before we get into spoilers, one of my biggest critiques of this movie, actually, when I first reacted to it, was I wanted to see more time in the world. I wish we were kind of focusing on Kevin's journey, but I was really interested in kind of the dystopian landscape, the field, the setting of the movie. And apparently there's going to be a director's cut of this movie that includes 25 more minutes with a lot of footage kind of focusing on that exact aspect. So I definitely will be watching that whenever that comes out. But two of the really big themes of this movie that I thought were very interesting. The first one, and to me what I kind of took away as the central idea driving this whole movie, was the concept of choice and free will. I mean, our central protagonist, Kevin, is facing choice in his life from the first act of the movie to the climax of the movie. And I also feel like he's kind of a heavily an underdog character, in the sense that a lot of things outside of his control are happening to him. But he still has a choice, and that's a focus of the movie. And his choice is not to control the universe around him or these kind of crazy, powerful sci-fi events and changes in his life. But his choice that persistently comes up is, what do you do when confronted with these insanely difficult challenges? How do you choose to handle them? How do you choose to behave? What moral choices do you make when faced with something so depressing and hard? And I love that. I love seeing that kind of struggle with a protagonist character, and I like how there's more than just this idea of survival, but this idea of moral survival going on as well. And, just the tension inherent with every choice that our character Kevin is going going through with the movie is very interesting to me. And also just this theme of the importance of choice, the importance of free will, and also the agency that it affords anybody despite how difficult your own circumstances are. I just feel like that's a very resonant theme, a very powerful theme, and something you see throughout each act as a recurring kind of point of focus for the film. And kind of related to that, I feel like oftentimes, Kevin, our protagonist, and us as the audience are also presented with the question of, what do you do? Do you decide to do what you believe is right, or what is easy? And it may sound like such an obvious thing, like, well, of course you're supposed to do what is right, but what's also kind of a new layer to this movie is, are you sure what you think is right is actually right? And it's not like the choice is as simple as do what's right or do what's wrong. It's almost like, do you want to suffer, or are you suffering needlessly for something that you just foolishly believe is right when there's another path that is much more pleasant? And to me, like, that makes the whole movie feel kind of more mature, more adult, adds another layer to all the kind of action and sci-fi thrills going on the whole time.
What do you want with me? I can make you a king. Imagine everything you have ever wanted. Work for me and get back with the woman that you love.
And a second really interesting theme that I feel like is very prevalent. I mean, obviously this movie is kind of a sci-fi adaptation, a very loose sci-fi adaptation of the book of Job from the Bible. So it has its roots in kind of biblical stories, although I also think the movie can be interpreted as a more religious movie, but also as a more sci-fi movie. And there's a couple weird theories I'll talk about of my own in the spoiler section of this video. But a theme that does come up consistently is kind of the idea of the classic philosophical idea of the problem of evil, the problem of pain, something that C.S. Lewis discusses in depth in his really well-written book. But basically the idea of, like, how can there be a benevolent, good, all-powerful God in a world where so much evil exists? And once again, you kind of see that through both the character of Kevin, our protagonist, and the character of the benefactor, who I'll purposely kind of keep vague, but as the antagonist character of the movie. The dystopian world that Kevin finds himself in is a very dreary place, full of suffering, full of depression, full of grays and rain and filth. Like I said, reminiscent of movies like Blade Runner. Not exactly a futuristic utopia that we have to look forward to. And so this idea of, how do you remain good in a world like this? Why should you remain good? Can you remain good? Or do you kind of have to get your hands dirty to get anything done? And then, like I said, in the more philosophical, religious perspective, how could a good God exist and allow all these things to happen? And that can be taken as a challenge of faith in this movie. And that's definitely a question that the movie ponders, but I also like how we don't really get spoon-fed an answer. I feel like when you have a difficult existential question, you don't really want to cheapen that with just an easy answer. And I don't think the movie presents us with an easy answer. And even the way some of the things wrapped up in this movie, which I'll talk about in the second half of the video, were surprising to me and interesting to me in that sense, related to that theme. So those are just two of the main themes. I mean, there's lots of other themes, just the general theme of light versus dark, of trust. How do you distinguish between your friends and your enemies? This idea of justice, the idea of, in life, do you want to follow what is good or what you want? Concepts like the power of true love, but also, can true love become selfish? Is there a point where true love is actually a mistake? Just lots of those kind of like bigger questions. Like I said, this movie is one of those movies, if you watch, I guarantee you will want to talk to someone else about this movie, especially about some of the ideas wrestled with. And to me, that's an extremely engaging element of movie making, especially in a sci-fi landscape where it's not just this, discussion in a courtroom of like good and evil and philosophy. I mean, I had fun in philosophy class in college, but when I'm watching a movie, I don't want it taught to me like a lecture. And this movie absolutely is not that. It's kind of just dealing with these bigger questions in a thriller that also deals with sci-fi and possibly religious elements.
You can't just shoot the devil.
There is so much evil and inhumanity in this world, but there is also beauty and hope, and I will find my way back to her.
This is where I'm going to be giving my spoiler warning. I will be discussing some more specific details, things about the ending. Just, if you haven't seen this movie, please go check it out. Link in the description to get tickets. Use code SHIFT10 to get 10% off. think you'll have a good time. Think you'll have a good time. You can watch this more than once, and I guarantee you'll pick up on details you didn't catch the first time around. But stick around if you've already seen this movie, you want to hear my breakdown of some of the spoilers, some of my theories. I could definitely be wrong. Like I said, I feel like different people will have different perspectives and takes, or if you just don't care about spoilers, you want to hear me talk about more about the movie, and maybe that intrigues you and you want to go support a smaller movie studio later. That's my official spoiler warning. From this point on in the video, I will be spoiling major plot points. Please click off this video if you don't want to get spoiled. That's the end of the warning. So one of the big reveals in The Shift that's kind of, I think it happens in the second act of the movie, is the fact that Kevin and Molly had a son and that they tragically lost their son. And that really provides some of an explanation for the sadness, the tragedy, the distance, the separation that we see between the two, main love interests of the movie at the beginning. Because at first we cut from them, kind of flirting, their first little meet cute moment, and then boom, they're clearly together as a couple, but there's this huge just chasm, this giant emotional space that you can just sense, and you're like, what happened? And so we find out that one of the major things that kind of led to their separation, I mean, not full-on separation, but kind of emotional distancing, was the tragic loss of their child. And that was really sad. It was kind of added this layer of emotional resonance to the whole film. It was a nice reveal. I like how they held that from the audience until later in the movie, and you're like, oh shoot, that puzzle piece came together. Now a lot more of what we saw earlier makes sense. It also, to me, added this sense of urgency for Kevin to get back to Molly, right? It's one thing you're trying to get back to your partner, you love them, but it's another thing where if you know that you're in a vulnerable spot because you lost a child and your partner's also in a vulnerable spot, like they're also suffering from that tragedy, how much more urgency is there, that feeling to rush back to them, to get back to them, to support them, to rebuild something together after you've lost so much? And then, like I talked about, I didn't get into specifics in my initial reaction and review, but something that surprised me at the end of the movie was that it didn't wrap up as a happily ever after, right? Like Kevin was able to get back to Molly, and we saw that they kind of built a new life together. They had a daughter after they had lost their son, but their son was gone forever, right? It's not like he came back. And we even get questioned throughout the movie. Kevin accuses the benefactor. He questions him. He's like, did you take away my son? Was that you? Did you shift him away? And that's pretty dark, right? We don't get a definitive answer. I am kind of leaning towards the idea that the benefactor was responsible. He does play this devil-like figure for sure. Whether or not he's literally the devil himself, I feel like could be up to interpretation. That leads me to another discussion point that I think was very interesting. Like I said, Neil McDonough really nailed the performance, brought this level of intimidation, this level of evil, this level of mockery and cynicism to his role, his deliveries. Just had this presence, this kind of icky, unsettling presence the entire time, from his first appearance to the last scene that he was in. But there were a few moments towards the end of the movie where Kevin was kind of making a speech in defense of staying true to his faith and to selflessness over selfishness, even when he so desperately wanted to get back to his love and kind of rebuild his life. I could be wrong, but my interpretation, and it was very interesting with Neil McDonough, I feel like you could see on the benefactor's face, it almost looked like some sadness to me. And I almost felt like he was a little bit moved or touched perhaps by Kevin's courage and vulnerability. And I was like, whoa, because I don't think that's something the devil himself would do, right? This pure evil fallen angel. I don't think he would care at all. I think he'd just go full rage mode. And I could be misinterpreting some of his expressions, but to me that was a very fascinating point and made me almost rethink, like, the benefactor, is he literally the devil, or is there a chance that it's not quite that simple? One of the theories I actually had in the first act of the movie, when Kevin first gets smashed by the truck, right? And you're kind of a nice surprise to kind of jolt you into the movie, and then he wakes up and everyone's gone. I actually thought, what if he had a brain injury? And what's actually going on is he's like in this state of subconscious, kind of reliving some of the most important choices, and he's reflecting almost like in this dream state whether or not those critical decisions in his relationship, for example, led him down the right path, or is there another path in an alternate reality, right? If this was all taking place in his subconscious, not really. But this idea of like almost a man in his final moments, or in a coma state perhaps, reflecting on how certain important decisions got him to where he is now. Now, I actually kind of want to throw that theory out personally, even though I think it could be a valid theory. I lean more towards the idea that he could be in this limbo state. Like, what could have happened is after that accident, he was in a coma. and then spiritually he's in this limbo world, and the dystopian alternate reality that he's in is actually like this spiritual testing ground. Now, to me, that's actually more fascinating, and I kind of lean towards that theory. Or, like I said, it could be exactly how the movie presents it, where there's many different realities and we're kind of leaning into the sci-fi multiverse aspect. But I'd love to know your thoughts. If you've seen the movie, let me know like how you interpreted that angle of the movie. But I do really like how the second after the accident, from when Kevin wakes up and is talking with the benefactor, immediately, like, yes, there are dangers and fights and his goal of trying to get back to Molly, but to me the real big fight going on is kind of like, you know, Anakin in Star Wars. Reminds me a little bit of Neo in the first Matrix movie as well, where there's a very, very big moral struggle happening as well, and Kevin really is fighting on that level, almost more so than in the physical world. As you watch the movie, at least the way that I take it, I really think the benefactor was pulling the strings a lot more than you initially think, especially if you watch the movie a second time. When Kevin and the benefactor are first sitting in the restaurant, and the benefactor is kind of offering him this temptation, and you're like, no, he's a scary dude, he's shifting people around, don't side with him. And then Kevin starts to pray. It's played almost as a moment of victory when the benefactor disappears. Why did he disappear? Did God answer Kevin's prayers and just take the devil out of that realm? And he comes back, right? So why did God take him away a little bit and then let him come back? It just seems like an interesting moment. And the first time I was watching it, I did think, yes, Kevin was just praying, got rid of the benefactor because the power of prayer. I actually don't think that's what happened. I think that the benefactor was trying to tempt Kevin, and he realized that this particular Kevin, wasn't going to fall for his charms, this offer, so easily, and so he just shifted tactics. He's like, okay, this one's a little bit more difficult. He's praying, he's putting on a brave face. Let's wait 5 years. How about you wallow in misery and the depression that is this dystopian land? You eat those beans, you get that sickness, you miss your wife, you work all day, you have like 2 minutes for lunch. I swear on their lunch break they had like 30 seconds. I mean, what a depressing job for sure. But I think the benefactor just had that patience, you know, and that added a level of malevolence and also a level of cleverness on his part if he almost played the part of someone who had been defeated so easily to maybe get Kevin to lower his guard, and also just let, you know, it's very easy to be brave for 1 second, or at least maybe not super easy, but a lot of people I think can muster the courage to stand up for good in a single moment. Try doing that for 5 years. And even the fact that the benefactor was hidden for so long, I feel like even made it more difficult. Like if you have an opponent who's standing right in front of you, that gives you a focus point, some motivation, like I need to defeat him. But if there's no opponent, he's just gone, and you're just in a state of misery, how much harder is it to stay true to what you believe in? You know, speaking of manipulation and, you know, what the benefactor was trying to do with Kevin, you know, something that was pointed out to me was that every time that Kevin saw Molly in the VicaView theaters, right, and it seemed like this miraculous moment, right, this technology where you can see alternate versions of yourself making different choices, which I'll talk about that in just a second, because that was a very fascinating aspect of the film as well. But the benefactor was behind all of that, ultimately, right? And that's also kind of a twist that doesn't, you know, I realized that while I was watching the movie, but I didn't really reflect on the implications of that. To hide as a miraculous good is a really sinister, sneaky, demonic type of thing to do, whether or not the benefactor is literally the devil himself. I have a weak spot in my heart for villains who are smart, and I also really like kind of this idea of this Palpatine-like villain who's trying to do more than conquer the good, but corrupt the good. And we have both of those elements in the antagonist character of the benefactor, who, like I said, is played very well by Neil McDonough. And speaking of the VicaViewing, I thought that whole element of the movie was very interesting, and I feel like you could interpret it a few different ways. You know, to me, I actually think that the VicaViewing, where you get, you know, on its surface, it's an interesting kind of technology where you can view versions of yourself in other universes making different choices. And I'm not gonna lie, if that technology was possible, I feel like I would want to see that. I mean, my curiosity would be very strong. Like, what are the alternate versions of Nick doing out there in the universe, right? But I think the danger of doing that is also really apparent and made clear in the movie as well, right? The theater manager, who is an awesome character, you know, he kind of mentioned when he was talking to Kevin how, you know, people would spend time a lot of time watching themselves, and it was really like an escape from the dreary reality, which we can see obvious parallels with people, either getting too obsessed with movies or too obsessed with social media or just any form of escapism where it gets to an extreme level and starts taking you away from your real life. But I also like the angle how he mentioned how people enjoyed watching versions of themselves doing horrible things, right? And I feel like that also kind of reflects and is a commentary on how the forms of escapism, as we indulge in them more and more, they can lead for a craving for something more extreme, something darker, right? You watch an action movie and then you want to see something that ups the ante more and more. Kind of like a drug experience, right? I don't think the movie's trying to say like TV is bad, movies are bad. I mean, it's a literal movie, but just any extreme indulgence in something that, you're using to avoid the problems, the challenges in your life is generally unhealthy. And what I think is interesting too is how Kevin, despite the fact that he's trying very hard to be a good man in this dystopian reality here, he himself willingly goes to watch other versions of himself. Now, he sees Molly, his wife, which he thinks is a miracle, which, now we know is actually the benefactor manipulating things all along. But leading back to what I was kind of saying about the theme of the movie overall, about choice and the importance of choice, the benefactor would never have been able to show Molly and kind of tempt him down that path if it weren't for the fact that Kevin, despite trying to be good, did willingly make the choice to go towards the Vika viewing theater, right? So he put himself there first. He made his choice, and that's what allowed the benefactor to then launch kind of this plan to trick him. If you look at someone in this, alternate reality here who is spending all their days in the Vika viewing experience, watching other versions of themselves, they 100%, whether it's good, healthy, not good, whatever your thoughts on that are, they're 100% not living their actual life in their current reality. They're just escaping away from it. Something is wrong. Something is off with that. And so I feel like that's kind of cool. It's kind of tying into obviously a lot of things we can relate to with virtual realities, video games, movies, right? I don't know. I guess I'd be interested to see if other people interpreted that aspect of the movie the same way, or if they thought that the Vika viewing theater represented something different. Something else that was pointed out to me in the cinematography that I absolutely did not notice, but I think is really, really cool little detail, little cinematic touch, is that the shots in the Vika viewer theater were down low, almost all of them. Like from the perspective, you could say, of hell looking out, or of a serpent, like the serpent from the Garden of Eden. And it's just like little details like that, in the cinematography. That's not a line of dialogue. That's not a part of acting. That's not a plot point. That's just the visual storytelling going on in this movie. I love elements like that. And like I said, I completely missed that myself if it wasn't pointed out to me. I'm sure there's other elements with the camera work and the storytelling, the angles, the lighting, where you can pick up more of the richness behind this movie. And you can absolutely tell that a lot of care and thought was put into the making of this film. This wasn't just something that was rushed out like, okay, hurry up, let's make a quick buck. This is not one of those types of movies. One other spoilery thing that I do want to talk about is Sean Astin, character of Gabriel. And the big twist that caught me by surprise was that Gabriel was working for the benefactor, right? And I feel like once again that kind of ties into something the benefactor was doing all along, like really hiding in plain sight, really using deception as a primary weapon to try to corrupt Kevin and get the upper hand. But Sean Astin, I feel like the casting of that was great because I'm already on his side. It's like Sam, I'm rooting for Sam. I think of Sean Astin, I think of someone who's going to be there for me, someone who's dependable, someone who's loyal, someone who has a good heart. And so to cast that type of an actor who's not just a great actor, but I have those kind of emotional associations already ready to go when I'm watching this movie, and then have the twist be like, oh, no. You thought he was the good guy, the good companion? This is not Lord of the Rings 2.0. This is a very different sci-fi story here. I thought that just worked really well. It was a nice, shocking surprise. I thought Sean Astin did a great performance, both as the undercover good friend, helping him out, even though he had kind of a crisis of faith, and then when he finally reveals his true colors as kind of an undercover agent working for the benefactor. It was just fun seeing him play both sides of that role, and like I said, just really smart casting to make that twist hit hard. And even the fact that the character was named Gabriel. Why is he named Gabriel? To me, I think of the angel Gabriel that appeared to the Virgin Mary and told her that she was going to be the mother of Jesus, right? But to me, and this could be totally off, but my interpretation of that is that since we find out the twist is that Gabriel was working for the benefactor all along, kind of like 3 a.m. in the morning, right? It's called like the devil's hour. That's supposed to be the polar opposite, a mockery of 3 p.m., which is supposedly when Jesus died on the cross. I think that's why that character is named Gabriel. Gabriel we think of as like an angel, a servant, a messenger of God, right? Someone who's loyal and dependable and gets the job done. The Gabriel working for the benefactor, of course the benefactor would have this sick, twisted sense of humor by having his right-hand companion, this guy who is the complete opposite of any of the traits of an angelic presence, but is pretending to be one. Wouldn't the devil just want to name his helper Gabriel, right? So to me, that's why the name could be there. But I'm not super confident with that theory. There could be other reasons. There might be other Gabriels I'm not thinking of. I don't know. I actually don't know. If anyone has thoughts about that little detail in particular, that would be very interesting. Please feel free to share them in the comments down below. But I could really go on and on about this movie. I mean, I have definitely not covered all the messages, the themes, and I'm sure there are lots of little details and Easter eggs that I completely missed out on, right? Like I touched on a few of the ones I liked, a few of the main themes that I liked, but I guarantee if I watch this movie another time, I would notice other little details. And just to me, that makes such a pleasant viewing experience where the more that I watch it, the more I have to appreciate and discuss with other people. And like I said, I really think that's one of the biggest strengths this movie has going for it. It's like on its surface, we have a fun, cool sci-fi thriller that moves along, engages you with the mystery, engages you with a little romance, right? Gets you hooked, gets you rooting for a protagonist who has a lot going against him pretty much from the very start of the film. But underneath all that, there's a lot of kind of deeper messages that I don't think are spoon-fed to you, but instead really leaves you with something to think about, discuss, and find your own interpretation, right? Like I said, I'm sure you could take 5 different people and show them all this movie, and I think we'd have 5 different opinions and interpretations, especially about specifics regarding the movie. And I also think you could take those same 5 people, have them all watch the movie a second time, and they would all have noticed different extra things that they didn't see the first time around. So it's just one of those types of movies. If that sounds like something that you like you like the sci-fi genre, you know, you like a movie that has its thrills and its mystery, but also has something kind of richer for you to chew on and think about afterwards, I think you'll have a fun time with this movie. But I'd love to know your thoughts about The Shift. Have you seen the movie? Are you planning on seeing the movie? Do you have a totally different interpretation? Do you agree with some of my points? Are there things you noticed in the movie that I completely forgot to mention? And like I said, if any of that sounds interesting, you want to check out The Shift, you want to watch it a second time, you want to support Angel Studios and this channel, feel free to head right down to the description down below. Use the link to get tickets. You can use code SHIFT10 to get 10% off. But thank you to Angel Studios for sponsoring this video. I really do appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed this review, commentary, and as always, remember, be active, be mindful, and be a hero.